Hi everyone, I'm Rick Edwards. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Richmond. Today we have my boss. So I'll introduce Dr. Danny Avula, Mayor of the City of Richmond. So Mayor's going to talk to you first and then I'll step in.
Hey, good morning everybody. Thank you all for being here. I talked to the chief earlier this week and just felt like, this would be an important time for me to address you all just because of what we've experienced and the acuity of what we've experienced as a community over the last few weeks. We've really seen, as the weather has come out and a number of different incidents where we have just had this spate of violence in our community, and specifically gun violence. And in the midst of a moment where we are feeling a lot of that, seeing a lot of that, I just want to acknowledge what that feels like to us as a community, that we stand with and hurt for the families who are impacted by this. We know that this is continuing to cause trauma for our residents, our families, and our community as a whole. I think it's also important to put things in context, and I realize that while it has felt really significant and acute in the last few weeks, our data year to date actually looks slightly better than it did the year before, and certainly better than it has in years past. And so it's important for us to not to panic as a community or to make more of it than it is, but also to take very seriously that even one life lost is too many. And so I think for us, this is a moment to acknowledge the pain that our community is feeling, to share that we too are heartbroken by the violence that is happening in our community, and particularly in our black families. We are seeing the disproportionate impact of this violence happen in our black community, and so it's important for us to give voice to that. I can't say enough good things about the work that the Chief and Richmond Police Department and so many of our community partners have done to stand in there, to use technology, to use new strategies, and also to use relationships to actually help come alongside families that are involved and to support them. And we want to continue doing that work. I have no doubt that the Chief will continue to lead a very thoughtful, data-driven, and sensitive to the community disease approach to how we are addressing this issue in our community. But it is also important to say that the solutions here are not solely to be carried by law enforcement and by our police department, right? There's a lot of work that needs to happen that we can drive more effectively on the prevention side of the house. We have a lot of funded entities, a lot of nonprofits that are engaging at different points. I will say, in the 3 months I've been sitting in this job, I've kind of been astounded by the amount of efforts going in different directions, trying to address violence, youth violence, gun violence. But what feels like a missing piece is the fact that there has not been an effective, coordinated effort to bring those together around our highest risk individuals. And so one of the things that I am announcing today and that we will work out in the coming weeks is that we will be bringing the Office of Gun Violence Prevention into the mayor's office. And the idea behind this is having a driver of this in the mayor's office who has a direct connection to me and the authority across all of our city agencies and our nonprofit partners to really do that hard coordinating work and to make sure that all of those different funded efforts and entities are really wrapping around folks who are at highest risk, whether those are youth who have been engaged in a particular event, whether they are victims of shootings or stabbings, whether they've been youth, young adults, whoever who have been involved in our criminal justice system. We need to do a better job of actually building a relationship and wrapping around with our various efforts. And so that will be the primary effort of this Office of Gun Violence Prevention coming out of the mayor's office. More details to come in the coming weeks. But you can imagine, there's a lot of different levers that we've got to pull, right? There's already a lot of community organizations that work on this, advocates, victim support services, legal, state, and federal partners in the work. And so The other role that this office will play, in addition to the coordinating and wraparound services around our highest risk individuals, is really helping to kind of coach and quarterback the coordination of all of those different entities and to align them around key performance indicators, right? We need to be data-driven. The chief and the police department are very data-driven in the work that they do. The rest of us need to be as well. And so that's part of what this Office of Gun Violence Prevention will do. Will drive us around a set of data and metrics that connect directly to people, right, to the residents of the city who those numbers represent. So happy to take a couple of questions on that, and then I'll allow Chief to get on with the rest of this press conference. But any questions as it relates to that?
When do you foresee this starting, the office?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. The question is, when do I foresee this starting? Well, we have found funding, and we'll move a position in the office shortly. I'm in the initial process of just taking candidates and making sure that I've clarified what the role scope will be and how many resources will be there. But I would guess by next month we should have somebody sitting in the role. Yeah.
Is it just one staff member, or are you looking at like a team?
Yeah, is it one staff member or is it a team? So we do have other funded folks across city government who work on these efforts. So right now I'm looking at one staff member who will sit in the mayor's office, and then we'll reevaluate as we go on, right? Either that person will have direct authority over folks in Department of Justice Services and Social Services and other entities as an example, but if we need to put more staff and support behind it and we can find funding streams to do that, we will. But right now, just one person.
Is this someone that's already working in the city of Richmond, or is this an open search?
Open search. We don't have anybody sitting in the role, and so I'm starting to look at who are potential candidates, because I do think part of it is somebody who brings credibility in the space, who sort of understands the dynamics, both on the law enforcement side, but more importantly on the prevention side, right? And so I want to make sure that we have somebody who understands that landscape and ideally has existing relationships and knowledge of the ecosystem that already exists in the Richmond region. But I don't have a specific person in mind, and happy to, I'm looking at different candidates, and we'll do those interviews over the course of the next month. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to acknowledge Councilmember Trammell here. Thank you for coming today. So before we get started on the quarter, I'd like to give an update on some of the questions that I anticipate you having, and we always start with some just general updates that I know while I'm here I'd like to explain. So if you look at the slide here, we're talking about the juveniles that have been shot since April 15th of year to date, and comparing it to other years. So we've had a total of 8 this year. In 2024 we had 10, and then in 2023 we had 8. So while no person being shot in our city is acceptable, it's even worse when it's a child. So this is, incredibly concerning. But as the mayor mentioned, we're going to talk about the first quarter, which ended obviously March 31st, but as the mayor mentioned, if you look at today, last year at this time we had 19 murders. As of today, including last night's incident, we're at 18, so that's a 5% reduction in murders year to date. For non-fatal shootings, this time last year we had 51, we're at 46 for a 10% reduction. And overall violent crime today is 2% down. Now for the quarter it's up, but I just want to give that context. And also start by addressing the loss of Jess Aber. So Jessica Aber, if you see this picture to your left, was at this podium with me just 3 months ago when we were talking about our partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office. On March 22nd, I got the call from the current U.S. Attorney informing me that she had passed away suddenly. And Jess was a beloved colleague and a true partner of the Richmond Police Department, and she is dearly missed. And I also just show this, for those that knew Jess, if you look at the picture of her sitting, I took that picture. I took that picture 3 years ago at one of our pop-ups. And Jess was the sitting United States Attorney for the Eastern District. She came to Mosby Court. And some of our pop-ups are really crowded. There's hundreds of people there. There's media. There's a lot of pictures taken. This one was one of the smaller ones. And I noticed she was sitting there talking to this young girl in Mosby. She talked about, I saw her and I just snapped this picture, and I asked her, I saw her give the business card to the little girl, and said, what was the conversation about? She said, oh, she was asking me what I did I told her I was a lawyer and I helped the police and prosecuted people, and she took 15 minutes to explain that and had a nice moment. That wasn't for the cameras, it wasn't for acknowledgement, it was just a quiet moment where she showed the kindness that those of us who knew her saw every day. So I just want to acknowledge her and her family for this terrible loss. I also would like to give you an update on our latest officer-involved shooting. So on March 6th, in the 2600 block of Melbourne Street, we had an officer-involved shooting. It was non-fatal. The individual who was shot is out of the hospital and doing well. But I will be naming the officers today. So they are both from the 1st Precinct Patrol. The first officer was Dominic Rivera. He has 7 years of service with the Richmond Police Department. The second officer who discharges firearm is Dequan Walker, and he had 3 years of service. That case will shortly, we will be providing our investigative summary to the Richmond Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, who will do a criminal review. That's the status of that case. I also have an update on another incident just this morning. So this morning I was at John Marshall Court Building and I attended the hearing of an individual who I can name now, who shot our officer last year in the 2300 block of Fairfield. This individual is a juvenile, but since he's been adjudicated as an adult, I can name him. His name is Davion L. Taylor Barnett, and he pled guilty this morning to maliciously wounding our officer. He was officer, and I will for the first time name the officer involved. I spoke to him this morning. He is okay with me providing a picture and giving his name. So his name is Officer Lucas Murray. Officer Murray was 6 months on the job when he was shot in the line of duty. This was, as you remember, a traffic stop, a scramble over an illegal firearm, and Officer Murray was shot in the hand. I am happy to report he is back to full strength and back to duty patrolling the streets of 1st Precinct as well. The individual was sentenced to, because he was 16 at the time, he's currently 17, he was sentenced to be incarcerated at the juvenile detention facility till the age of 21. So 5 years of active incarceration, and then after that, he'll be on probation for 10 years. So I'd like to thank the Richmond Commonwealth's Attorney's Office for their diligence in this case. And we're very proud of Officer Murray for making a full recovery and coming back to our city. And I'll also mention, again, the firearm used to shoot our officer was stolen from an unlocked vehicle in one of the surrounding counties. So while we got some good news to share on those stolen guns, we're doing better, but it's still leading to crime guns in our city, and this particular gun was used to shoot one of my officers. All right, this is a question we're getting from many members of the media. So this individual, as you know, we had a 2-year-old shot. Thankfully, he was shot in the thigh on April 1st in the 1900 block of West Main Street. The Richmond Police Department has charged his father with felony child neglect. We have seized a weapon, and we're anticipating additional charges in consultation with the Commonwealth Attorney for Catrell Jackson, age 21 of Richmond. And now we'll get into the first quarter. Again, the quarter ended on March 31st, and obviously today's April 17th, so some things have changed. But the first quarter we're up in murder, so 14 versus 11. Rape is down 22%. A big number, a big percentage, but not a big number, is a robbery commercial update. Our robbery individuals are down, and our aggravated assaults are up. These are just all aggravated assaults, to include shootings but not limited to them. And then the overall violent crime is up 9% for the first quarter. But as I mentioned, as we're sitting today, we're down 2%. But again, when I talk about crime, I always want to talk about Richmond versus Richmond in the past. That's the only way to really judge what we're doing. And the number that jumped out at us on the commercial robbery for the 7-year threshold, we had 17 in the first quarter. We're 2 above the 7-year average. And I'll talk about a case that we think will start driving that number back down. So we've had 3 that we've confirmed, maybe others, but 3 commercial robberies of tobacco/vape shops in Richmond. So on March 9th, we made a significant arrest of 3 individuals. So Corian Weaver, age 18, Calvin Johnson, age 42, and a 16-year-old juvenile male were involved in a series of very brazen and dangerous robberies. They were zip tying clerks, stealing their phones, You know, very concerning behavior. Luckily, none of the clerks were hurt physically, but obviously traumatized. So our officers started working on it with the detectives. We were able to make an arrest on March 9th when we spotted a vehicle description. And I want to show, we made the arrest, we stopped the car. These are some of the things we seized out of there right after a robbery. So the third robbery occurred. We found the vehicle, utilized our plane, utilized technology to track it. But something I want to highlight is the license plates that we seized. So when we stopped this car, multiple fake license plates were seized. Now, there's a reason we're mentioning that is because people are using these fake license plates to get around some of our technology and just general witnesses. So they're putting fake tags on a car, doing these crimes, and then hoping to get away with it. In this case, they didn't, but you can see some of the firearms that were seized and then the sheer amount of cash and tobacco and, unfortunately, marijuana that was seized, that was stolen from these vape shops. So that was a good arrest. We're hoping we're going to see that trend end. The other big increase is aggravated assaults. So when I looked at the reports, we had 137 for the first quarter. The average is 124, so a bit up from our average, and we had a really low one last year. But what we're seeing, and it plays out in our homicides and non-fatal shootings, are these fights that continue to escalate. So some of these fights are felony assaults that count as an aggravated assault. So if you choke someone, it's a felony. If you use any kind of weapon, whether it's a bat, a stick, a hammer, or in many cases, this is another thing that's driving the numbers, is we see these fights and then someone pulls out a mace and sprays 5 people. Well, every person they spray, that counts as another aggravated assault. So again, just like we saw yesterday, fights escalating is what's leading to these violent crimes, and these don't escalate to murder, thankfully, but many do, unfortunately. So again, this is our violent crime threshold for the first quarter. The first quarter is always difficult for us because it's the smallest number. We'll get a better sense of where we're going as we progress through the year, but the average is 222 violent crimes for the first quarter. We're at 222, so a bit down, still not where we want to be, but again, when you compare Richmond to Richmond in the past, you can see we're below the average. And our murder threshold, so for the first quarter we have 14. We had a high in 2023 of 18, but again, we're right at the average of 14. I know it doesn't feel like that always, but that's where we're at right now. This is our non-fatal shooting threshold, and when we talk about non-fatal shootings, almost always they're attempted murders. So it's just either luck, the angle of the bullet, or the skill of one of our great doctors at one of our hospitals who save people from ending up for these being murders. So we take them just as seriously as we do homicide cases. So, but we had 39 this year. The 7-year average is 43 for the first quarter. So again, down. And then just as a breakout, so we're 1 up from last year. So a 3% increase, but on pace for last year's non-fatal shooting in the first quarter. And I talked to you all a lot about our hotspots. So if you see this map, this is a heat map of where our non-fatal shootings and our murders are. And then you see the blue dots there. There are 17 hotspots, and the addresses are right here. These are where our officers are spending most of their time. We're trying to deploy those resources so that we can keep a lid on some of these violent crimes. But if you look at where the dots are, the yellow is the brightest. So that's the sheer number of those incidents. And so we know we're on the right track. And as I've said before, we look at data, we change this data, these hotspots every 6 months, but it's based upon 5 years of data, and then we do a recency quotient of 6 months, and we look at 5 crimes. So we look at murders involving firearms, non-fatal shooting robberies, non-fatal shooting aggravated assaults, shooting into occupied dwellings, and shooting into occupied vehicles. The last 2 I talk about a lot. They don't get a lot of coverage because no one's actually hit, but we think those are very important crimes. When you shoot into a person's car, when you shoot into a person's house and nobody's hurt, it's still something we track, even though it doesn't count as one of these major crimes that we measure. But it's something our investigators look at, and we find that a big indicator of future violence to come, so we really focus on those. Again, I talk about this all the time. Accidental shootings for the quarter, we had 7 this year, so it's up. In 2024 we had 6, and the year previous we had 5. So Again, small number, but still totally preventable crime with basic gun safety tactics. That leads me to my next slide. So we talk about this a lot, but I want to reiterate it. So we have invested in high-quality gun safes for our community. So not only do our captains have access to these gun safes, and in the event they go to a home and they see an unsecured weapon, no crime's been committed, but we want to offer that to our community so that we can lock these guns up and they don't end up in the hands of kids. But so Dr. Gwen Andrews manages that program. She's in charge of our Richmond Community Mediators, so call that number. We haven't given many out for the first quarter, so it was very popular before, so I want to reiterate that. If you're a Richmond resident and you have a gun you're unable to secure, let us know, and we'll get you a high-quality safe so that while the cost is, you know, these are expensive safes, but we cannot put a price on our children, so particularly. All right, we'll talk about traffic fatalities. Again, for the first quarter, up a bit. So we're at 5 this year. This time last year we had 2, and in 2023 we had 4. Year to date we're at 6. We just had a pedestrian struck in Miss Trammell's district on Walmsley, who was walking, at night on Walmsley Boulevard where there's not a lot of places to walk, and he was unfortunately struck. The operator of that vehicle stayed on scene. And was not intoxicated, was not driving fast, but could not see the pedestrian who walked right in front of the middle of the road. So very concerning, and something that has a lot of answers, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's police speed enforcement, some of the speed cameras, and some other things. But this, something we often don't talk about is pedestrian behavior. So if you're on a sidewalk and you get hit by a car like we've seen, obviously that's not your fault. But if you have your earbuds in and you're intoxicated and you walk in the middle of the road, it's going to be very difficult for you for that operator of that vehicle to stop before they hit you. All right, now we're moving to property crime. So this is one of the benefits, and I have some things I really want to talk to you about this. So unfortunately, the scourge of my existence is shoplifting, and mainly these, again, and I say this every time I'm up here, it's at ABC stores, the majority of our shoplifting, but that's up 19% for the first quarter. Commercial burglaries are up. We'll talk about that specifically. But residential burglaries way down for 28%. Theft for motor vehicles, generally the #1 crime in Richmond, is down again for the second year in a row. Motor vehicle thefts, I'm happy to report, are down. For the last 2 years, we saw, incredible increases in thefts of Hyundai and Kia. We've had this program where we're giving away those wheel locks. We still are giving those away, but the upgrades we're finding, it's much more difficult to steal those cars, and the thieves are realizing that, and we're giving away more and more wheel locks. But an overall property reduction for the first quarter is 18%. And while violent crime is our focus, violent crime is the main thing we care about, property crime obviously affects many more residents. So here, again, Richmond versus Richmond in the past for our commercial burglary threshold. So the average is 47 this year, over the last 7 years. This year's at 48, so a little bit up, but we'll talk about why we think that is. So we're seeing certain, again, vape shops being burglarized. We're seeing other businesses being broken into and stolen where they're stealing items, and we have some suspects that we're looking at. I'm pleased to report we're down 12% over last year of guns stolen from motor vehicles, 9% on that, so compounding years of reduction, which is really, really great. So, but still, look, 126 guns that shouldn't be on our streets are now on our streets because individuals are leaving them in their cars, and oftentimes leaving them unlocked, sometimes even in plain view. So again, as I mentioned, our officers shot last year with a gun that some resident left in their car unattended, and it was used to commit a crime, and we have many examples of that. So these are, by definition, crime guns. So we're urging our community, if you have a gun, your car is not a safe place to store it. We talk about it a lot, but the Second Amendment's a right. It's also a big responsibility. If you own a gun, it's your responsibility to properly secure it. And again, if you can't, contact us, and we'll make those arrangements. And finally, when we compare property crime and violent crime, it overall counts as major crimes. So those crimes consist of murder, non-negligent manslaughter, aggravated assault, rape, robbery, arson, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft. When we combine all those, we're down 16%. So 2,094 overall crimes reported in the first quarter, down from a significant increase in 2024. That's mainly driven by property crime. We're still struggling with shoplifting, but those other property crimes are coming down. And we have some of the best detectives in the business working those precincts. We take those reports very seriously, and they're doing a really good job. So now I'd like to talk about the department's commitment to community engagement. One of the things, just yesterday, our department conducted a walk. Every month we do at least one walk where it's command staff members picking an area of the city. Yesterday we were on Park Avenue, and I'll explain why we do that. Sometimes we plan for certain walks and then we see a crime trend and we adjust and put it in a neighborhood where we're seeing that crime, and we want to hear from our residents directly. So yesterday we were walking in this area in the museum district, and because we're seeing a trend of a burglar. So a residential burglar, we put this picture out of this individual. There are 3 crimes in the museum district and Windsor Farms where this individual has been tied to those crimes. He's a suspect in other suspicious behavior while he's walking in yards, looking at cars, not breaking the law, but people are capturing him on their cameras and sending them to us. We're trying to identify this person. If you're breaking into a person's home, particularly when they are home at the time, and that's what's happening here, not only is that a violation for that homeowner, but this person is playing with their own life. If you go into the wrong house, you're going to be shot. And I would just encourage this person to stop doing it. We're conducting many operations, and we're looking for this person. And anyone that has information, please call us at Crime Stopper 780-1000 if you know who this person is. I know he's covered from head to toe, but sometimes if you recognize clothing or if you know someone who's in the area, it can be, you might have that missing piece. So again, we originally were going to go to a different place in 3rd Precinct. Because of this concern, we went to Park Avenue. We did the walk yesterday and talked to our community and made them aware of this crime particularly and asked them for their help. So we also do a series of pop-ups. So every month we do pop-ups in our community. So one walk and one pop-up. This took place, I think, on the 8th. Of April. The mayor came out. We got the Richmond Kickers to come to Southwood. This was a community that we're constantly reintroducing ourselves to, so just had a great operation. We got to play soccer with the kids. I'm usually better at basketball, but they gave me a soccer ball, and I did my best. But, you know, just a good interaction with folks, and the Kickers were so fantastic. They were like superheroes to those young folks there, because my first time I did a pop-up in Southwood 3 years ago, I went to our youth and community engagement officers, and we always bring them something. So I brought a bunch of basketballs and footballs, and I saw the kids take them on the ground and start kicking the balls there. And I was like, all right, I need to be more culturally competent. So we got the Kickers involved, and they gave away about 100 soccer balls, and it was a fun day for everyone. And that's a neighborhood that is, you know, has some concerns right now about their police department. So we wanted to reassure them that we're there to make sure that they can call us if they need us, and that we're their police department too. And our next one's going to be in Northside, so Lincoln Muse, 4100 block of North Avenue on April 22nd, 4:30 p.m. We'll be out there, similar event in 4th Precinct. The commander's back there, James Lano, so we're looking forward to that. We're experiencing some gun violence in that community as well as some other crimes, and we want to just reassure the community there. And I wanted to mention this too about community engagement. Usually when there's a crisis, the Richmond Police Department is leading the way. During the water crisis, we were not the lead agency, but we were asked to fill some roles. And one of the things that we had going for us is we had mobile officers, and we know how to respond. We're first responders, so we had to solve a problem. And the problem we had to solve was, how do we get water to our most to our residents in a way before we could set up the distribution sites. So for the first 3 days, we delivered through 311, and just even Miss Trammell calling me, we had a whole list of people that needed water deliveries. We did over 800 in the span of 3 days. So we just use that, as our system, pitched in and tried to help our community in what's, normally not a traditional role. So I'd like to talk about our staffing. We are stagnant with our staffing. We are at 588 sworn officers right now. And the starting salary for a police recruit is $55,822. But I asked our analysts to do something else and look at what is the 3-year average once you've been with the Richmond Police Department, taking in all of the special pays that we have. We have on-call pay, we have overtime, obviously. We have, if you're in a special unit, if you work at night, you get a differential. So the average pay for a 3-year officer is $84,000 in Richmond. And I think if you looked at that, when you compared us to some of the counties, you would see that that's very competitive. So it's something that, you know, is based upon a lot of the special pays and overtime, and I'd love to see a less overtime for our officers and giving them more of a break. But I want to just encourage people, if you're watching this and you want to serve, there's no better place to come to than the Richmond Police Department. I'll highlight a few things here. So we just graduated the biggest class we have is in field training right now. The 129th, we have 23 new officers. They get sworn in in field training, but they're not really officially graduating until May 16th. So you can see them there. They look nice in their fresh uniforms. But I want to tell the story of why Richmond's a little different. So, you know, these new officers are already making their mark on our department. So one of them, with his field training officer in Hillside Court, helped put a tourniquet on a young girl who had been shot. So a 15-year-old girl that had been shot in Hillside Court. Chaos out there. This officer and his field training officer, in the midst of the calm and the storm, put a tourniquet on this young lady, stayed with her until the ambulance could come there, and gave her a fighting chance. And once she got to the hospital, she is doing much better. But we were not optimistic about her safety that day. So this officer had been on the street for 2-3 weeks, has already understanding how important his role is in helping save a life. I talk about it a lot too, the Shockoe Bottom. So I was in the Shockoe Bottom 2 weeks ago. We had at night, we had a series of 2 fights, and an individual who was involved in both those fights was pushed away. Well, he goes to his car, comes back with a rifle, and one of our field training officers and his rookie officer saw him coming back with a rifle towards that crowd and stopped that person. He's been cited and arrested. So again, making a difference 2 weeks out. The experience our people get is second to none, and the ability to affect people's lives in a positive way is second to none at the Richmond Police Department. So I just got to say that, you know, they're seeing it. I can't wait to see them graduate and see what they're going to do, but their ability to impact people and make a difference is just really impressive. And I'd like to encourage more people, young people of character, encouraged to consider this job and consider the Richmond Police Department. So that's what I've got for you. Happy to take any questions.
Any update you can give on yesterday's incidents at the funeral? Any suspects or any other victims or anything that led up to what happened?
Yes, so not much I can say. I can tell you the detectives have been working through the night. We are making progress. We have seized several firearms that were on scene and elsewhere. We are in the process of interviewing people that were at the funeral itself. Obviously, after the shots were fired, people fled and from all directions. But, you know, I said it yesterday, but it can't be overstated. These fights that are escalating to gun violence have to stop. If you're the type of person that can't control your temper, for God's sake, leave your gun at home, because that's what we're seeing. You should be able to go to a funeral and not have to have metal detectors at the entrance point. It should be sacred for people. And that was shattered yesterday. So we had a person whose casket couldn't even be buried because his remains were within a crime scene tape. And we had to stay on scene. Our officer stayed there until he could be properly buried. But that's absurd. So we will have some news shortly, I believe, that we can release, but we are making progress, and I must commend the Major Crimes Division of the Richmond Police Department. I have some of the numbers here. To talk about the clearance rates. And for the first quarter, we cleared 9 of those cases, 9 of the first 14, which is a 64% clearance rate. The other great thing, and we've talked about this as well, is year to date we have we have solved and cleared 9 prior year cases. So the IBR clearance rate is over 100% because we've solved those cases from December and November and even going back a couple years. So the work never stops. The Major Crimes Division and their dedicated detectives never stop. They're bringing that great tradition of your father, Joy, of being a great homicide detective, Joe Foltz, the legendary man in this building. But they're continuing that great legacy, and I'm so proud of them this year. Anything else?
We saw programs like Operation Safe Summer enacted last year. Is there any idea if that will be brought back this year or something similar?
Yes. So we already had that plan for May 31st start date. We've met with our partners. We anticipate, before we start that, we always want to go through not only tactical training when we're bringing in other individuals from other agencies to mesh with our officers, but we also go through a day of legal training put on by the U.S. Attorney and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office so that everyone's on the same page legally. So yes, as of right now, we're starting May 31st, but we've let them know that we may need to start it sooner. I'm hoping not to do that because everyone has their plans, and it's difficult to turn on a dime, but we've already primed them that if needed, they will step up with us again. All right.
What do you think about this Office of Gun Violence that Mayor Avula mentioned? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as the mayor said, the police, this is not a police operation itself. I think that we have to throw the kitchen sink at gun violence, and I'm interested in finding unique and interesting ways to address violent crime without locking someone up. By the time it gets to the police are a very it's a very broad tool, and maybe like a sword. What this requires also is a scalpel. So by the time it gets to the police, you have made so many mistakes through your life that you've committed heinous crimes, and we're the agency there that is there to deal with you through the criminal justice system. I'm really interested in having that coordination with the nonprofits and other city agencies under that umbrella so that we're all rowing in the same direction. So I think it's a great idea. I'm glad the mayor is implementing it, and I look forward to doing our part.
Any goals that you can share for next quarter in regards to maybe responding to some of the spikes that we've seen so far?
Well, the goal is always zero violent crime. That I understand that while that's the goal, that's never going to happen in a city like Richmond. But again, making sure that we're focused on those areas. As I showed you that map where we're seeing our gun violence, making sure that our officers, when they're in downtime, they're spending it there. And then that relentless follow-up when something happens so that we bring the best cases we can before the Richmond Commonwealth Attorney so that she can do her job in the courthouse. All right, folks, I appreciate you.